Have you ever spent time with someone and afterward felt strangely exhausted, not physically tired, mentally heavy? Sometimes it happens after a conversation, a dinner, a phone call, even a short interaction. And the strange part is other people don't affect you that way at all. Some people make you feel calmer, lighter, more like yourself, but certain people change your energy completely. Around them you think more before speaking. You replay your words while they are still talking. You become more careful without realizing it. And when the interaction finally ends, you feel relief. Real relief, like your mind can finally breathe again. Most people experience this, but very few understand what's actually happening underneath it psychologically. What people call energy draining usually has very little to do with energy itself. It's psychological tension, because your nervous system constantly reacts to social environments, even when your conscious mind doesn't fully notice it. That's why you can feel completely different depending on who you're around. Around some people you naturally relax, silence feels comfortable. You don't monitor yourself constantly. You don't overthink every sentence afterward. But around others, your brain quietly shifts into alert mode. You start checking their reactions, thinking carefully before speaking, wondering if you sound awkward, rehearsing simple messages before sending them. And after enough time, that emotional self-monitoring becomes exhausting. Psychologist Carl Rogers believed people psychologically grow in environments where they feel accepted without constantly needing to perform. And most people don't realize how rare that feeling actually is. One of the clearest signs someone affects your energy is that your personality changes around them. Not intentionally, automatically. Maybe you become quieter, more agreeable, more emotionally filtered. You laugh differently, speak differently, even your posture changes slightly. Some people check someone's mood before bringing up certain topics. Some people instantly become tense the moment a specific person walks into the room. Some people reread texts 5 times before sending them to certain people, while acting completely natural with everyone else. And often they don't even realize how much they are adapting anymore, because adaptation slowly becomes normal. That's why emotionally draining relationships are difficult to recognize at first. Nothing dramatic may happen, no huge argument, no obvious toxicity, but your nervous system never fully relaxes. You become emotionally alert the entire time, trying not to say the wrong thing, trying not to create tension, trying not to be misunderstood. And eventually you stop feeling natural around them completely. Some conversations don't feel like connection. They feel like performance. One of the strangest things about human psychology is that your body often recognizes emotional patterns before your mind explains them. That's why a simple notification from certain people can instantly change your mood, or why hearing someone's footsteps nearby suddenly makes you more alert. Your nervous system remembers experiences quietly, who interrupts you constantly, who subtly judges you, who makes you over-explain yourself, who feels emotionally unpredictable, who makes you feel like you must constantly manage their reactions. And over time, your body begins preparing for those interactions automatically. That's why some people feel exhausted before social events even begin. Their nervous system already associates those environments with emotional tension. Psychologist Stephen Porges explained through polyvagal theory that human beings constantly scan environments for cues of emotional safety or danger, and socially people do this every single day without realizing it. That's why emotionally draining interactions stay in your head afterward. Your body left the conversation, but mentally part of you is still inside it. Sometimes the most exhausting people are the ones who make you feel emotionally unsafe in subtle ways. There are people around whom you can simply exist, and there are people around whom you constantly manage yourself. That difference changes everything psychologically, because emotional management requires energy. Some people unconsciously make you feel like you must impress them, entertain them, avoid disappointing them, or constantly prove your value. And after enough time, you stop interacting naturally, you begin performing. That's why some people replay conversations for hours afterward. The interaction ended physically, but mentally their nervous system never exited it. And many people become so used to this, they mistake emotional tension for normal connection, especially people who grew up around criticism, unpredictability, or emotionally unstable environments. Because when someone spends years adapting emotionally, hyper-awareness starts feeling normal. You can genuinely care about someone and still feel emotionally exhausted around them. A lot of people think social exhaustion only happens because they are introverted, but often the deeper issue is psychological self-monitoring. There is a huge difference between being socially tired and being emotionally tense. Healthy connection usually feels calming. You leave feeling lighter, more mentally quiet, more emotionally open. But emotionally draining interactions create the opposite effect. You leave feeling crowded inside your own head, and afterward, your brain keeps replaying tiny details, their tone, their expression, that awkward pause. Something you said differently. That's why certain people stay in your mind long after they leave the room. Your nervous system never fully settled during the interaction, and modern life intensifies this even more, because now people carry social tension digitally too, waiting for replies, overthinking messages, checking who viewed something, reading emotional meaning into tiny reactions online. The human brain was never designed for non-stop social awareness, and eventually many people become emotionally exhausted without understanding why. But the most dangerous part isn't exhaustion. It's what slowly happens to your identity afterward. After enough time around emotionally draining environments, people slowly disconnect from their natural personality. Because they become too focused on managing reactions, they stop speaking freely, stop expressing thoughts honestly, stop relaxing completely, and eventually they become different versions of themselves depending on who they are around. Confident in one room, guarded in another. Funny with certain people, emotionally careful with others. Their nervous system keeps adapting for safety. That's why genuinely safe people feel so different emotionally. Around emotionally safe people, you don't constantly monitor yourself. Silence feels normal. Your personality feels natural. You don't replay conversations afterward wondering if you embarrassed yourself somehow. You simply exist. And once someone experiences that kind of connection, they often realize how emotionally exhausting many of their relationships actually were, because peace feels unfamiliar to people who became used to tension, and maybe that's why healthy connection feels almost strange at first. Your mind keeps waiting for judgment that never comes. So if certain people leave you mentally exhausted, it does not automatically mean you're weak, antisocial, or too sensitive. Sometimes your mind is reacting normally to emotional pressure, because human beings are deeply affected by social environments, far more than most people realize, and one of the healthiest psychological shifts a person can make is learning to notice who allows them to relax into themselves and who constantly forces them into performance, because the people around you shape your stress levels, your confidence, your emotional safety, and eventually your sense of self. That's why some people feel calming in ways that are difficult to explain. Your nervous system finally stops preparing for tension, and maybe that's what real connection actually feels like. Not intensity, not performance, just psychological safety. The truth is, emotionally draining people are not always loud, toxic, or obviously harmful. Sometimes they simply create environments where you stop feeling fully like yourself, where you become more careful than honest, more alert than relaxed, more performative than natural. And over time, that quiet emotional tension becomes exhausting, because human beings were never meant to constantly monitor themselves around the people closest to them. Real connection feels different. You feel calmer, more present, more mentally quiet. You don't obsess over every sentence afterward. You don't feel emotionally on guard. You don't leave conversations feeling strangely heavy for hours. You simply feel more like yourself. And maybe that's the real difference. Some people pull you away from yourself, others quietly bring you back. And honestly, while watching this, most people probably thought of someone specific. That usually tells you more than you realize. So if any part of this felt familiar, leave your thoughts below. And if you want to keep exploring the hidden psychology behind human behavior, relationships, and self-awareness, because once you start seeing the invisible patterns behind people, you stop experiencing relationships the same way again.